You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep.
Hey guys, I am here in England at Lake Windermere, in the Lake District of England in Lancashire. My buddy Craig, who's from England, is filming. Why don't you say hi, Craig?
Hi, Craig.
You hear that act? Can you even tell what he's saying, guys? Anyway, being here at the lake reminds me of a certain story in the Bible, and I want you to go ahead and turn there to Luke chapter 8, and we're going to talk about a story that takes place on a lake, since we are at a lake. So we just were on a boat, but it was raining, so we decided to wait and film it once we got off. So Luke chapter 8, verse 22, go ahead and turn there, and we're going to read it. I'm in the Women's Devotional Bible here, NIV, Luke 8, 22. This is what it says. One day Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's go over to the other side of the lake." So they got into a boat and set out. As they sailed, he fell asleep. A squall came down on the lake so that the boat was being swamped, and they were in great danger. The disciples went and woke him, saying, "Master, Master, we're going to drown." He got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waters. The storm subsided, and all was calm. "Where is your faith?" he asked his disciples. In fear and amazement, they asked one another, "Who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him." So we've been talking the past few months really about following Jesus and what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. And we talked about having faith. We talked about the story of Peter walking on the water. And tonight we're talking about trust and this idea of trusting Jesus in the storm, in a sense. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then hopefully be able to apply that to your lives and to our lives, and to be able to trust Jesus as we follow him, to trust him with our lives, and to trust that he will fulfill his promises and do what he says. So in the story, we have Jesus getting on a boat with his disciples. They're in the lake, and he fell asleep. Now, I was just on a boat out here on the lake, and I almost fell asleep. Craig did fall asleep because it was comfortable. It was just this nice and peaceful environment. But then a storm comes down on the lake. Now, I don't know if many of you have been out on a boat in the storm. You may have been out on Lake Lewis and Clark during a storm, but I used to live in Uganda. Craig, the guy filming, used to live in Uganda too. And Lake Victoria is there. It's one of the largest, I think the largest lake in Africa. And where we used to work, you would get on this boat and go across from this village called Gaba to another place called Bethany Village. And you would take this boat across. Now, the boat, usually it was a long boat, and once in a while you get out on the lake and these storms would come up. They kind of came out of nowhere. So the storm would come up, and all of a sudden the waves would get real big, and the boat would start going up and down, up and down. The water would start coming in, so you had to get these little buckets and throwing water out. And it got kind of sketchy once in a while. So as you're out on the lake, you know, the storm came up, all you were thinking about was keeping the water out and getting to shore safely. And in this story where the storm comes, these guys, the disciples, were fishermen, so they were used to being on the lake. They were used to being in boats. So it had to have been quite a storm to cause them to worry a little bit. And meanwhile, while they're scared, while they're on the lake, Jesus is sleeping. I apologize. They're like geese and swans everywhere. Hey guys, how you doing? They're interested in the Bible too. See. Anyway, so Jesus is sleeping during the storm. And the disciples are so scared, they finally can go wake up Jesus and say, "We're going to drown. The boat's going to get sunk. We're out here. We're toast." And Jesus gets up, rebukes the wind and the waters, and the storm calms down. Now this is really interesting because what happens is the disciples have seen Jesus showing his power over the supernatural world by casting out demons, healing people. Here they see him show his power over the natural world and calming a storm. Now, if there was a storm right now, it was raining a little early, but if it started storming and the wind started blowing, and I heard Craig say, if I heard Craig rebuke the wind, Craig, could you rebuke the wind for us?
Yeah, wind, stop it.
See, if he said that and then it stopped, that would be pretty impressive. But I don't expect that to happen. But you see, Jesus did that. He stopped. He rebuked the wind and it stopped. And so he was showing his power over nature to these disciples. And then he asked them, he says, where is your faith? Because he'd been teaching them this idea that he is God. He has the power over the supernatural, the power of the natural. And he says to them, where's your faith? And so I want to ask you tonight about our faith. Is your faith in Jesus? And do we trust him? Because we may not be on a boat out in the middle of a lake during a storm, but you know what? Each one of us deals with like storms in our own lives. We deal with situations. We deal with trouble at home. We deal with drama at school. We're dealing with sin. We're dealing with temptation. We're dealing with addictions, things like that. And do we trust God enough? Do we have enough faith in him to be able to be peaceful in that storm, to trust that he will carry us through the storms of life? Because throughout life you're going to face different challenges. You're going to face different scenarios. Some are brought about by our own choices. Some things are out of our control. But Jesus is saying to us, just as he says to the disciples, he wants us to trust him through that storm. He wants us to look around us and say, you know, the water's raging. Things are going crazy all around me, but I'm not going to fear. I'm going to have faith in him. And so it's this idea that when we're dealing with the tough stuff, instead of looking at the storm, we look to Jesus. Instead of looking at the storm around us, we look at who is with us. Because you see, the disciples, all they saw was the storm. They didn't realize that they had God in human flesh next to them in Jesus. But friends, if you've following Christ, if you're following Jesus, he is with you through these storms. And instead of looking at the situation, look at him. Don't be distracted by all the things going on. Put your eyes on Jesus. Because what happens here at the end, after Jesus says, where's your faith? It says, in fear and amazement, they asked one another, who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him. You see, as we fix our eyes on Jesus, we see who he is. We see how he can carry us through the storms. We see what he can do through life's challenges. And as we do that, we will be amazed by him. You'll be amazed by what Jesus has done. Because as we trust him, instead of being afraid of what's going on, instead of being distracted by the circumstances, by the things happening in life, as we look to Jesus, we'll be amazed at what he's done. We don't necessarily need to see him calm a storm, but you can see him take a situation that seemed unfixable and fix it. You can see Jesus take a relationship that was broken and heal it. Because that's what Jesus does. He's all about bringing glory to himself. And as we see Jesus, as we fix our eyes on Jesus, we can be amazed. We can be amazed at who he is and what he does and how much he loves us. So with this idea of following Jesus, guys, the thing I want to talk about tonight is trusting Jesus, looking at him through all the things that are going on in life, all the distractions, all the things, keeping our eyes on him, and then being amazed as he carries us through it. Because Jesus wants to bring us through the storm. Even if we can't see to the other side, even if it seems dark and unending and impossible, Jesus can do the impossible. Jesus can calm the storm. And he can carry us through. But we have to keep our eyes on him, just like that story we talked about of Peter walking out on the water. He had to keep his eyes on Jesus and not be distracted. So last week and this week, they kind of go together. It's this idea of keeping our eyes on Jesus. I guess that you could say that's the theme. Keep our eyes on Jesus in the tough times. Keep our eyes on Jesus in the struggles. Keep our eyes on Jesus as we're trying to figure out what life's about. Because as we keep our eyes on Jesus, then we're able to walk in confidence because our eyes are on Him, not on the world. So tonight, now, we're going to go into small groups. We're going to have a little bit of discussion. But I want you just to not just discuss. I always want to be practical. So this week, think about the things you're dealing with in life. They're excited. You should be too. Think about the things that are going on in your life. Think about the challenges you're facing. Think about the things you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, the situations that seem impossible. And I'm just going to say, start fixing your eyes on Jesus. This week, let's stop looking at everything going on around us and fix our eyes on Jesus. And as we do that, we'll begin to be able to see clearer how we can walk through those things and how we can deal with those things because our eyes are on Jesus. So we're going to end there, guys. I hope you've enjoyed some of the scenery. I'm going to have Craig do a pan and we'll fade out. But I hope you've been able to enjoy this lesson and enjoy getting a little glimpse of England. So see you guys a little later. Whoa, there's a dog. Can you just do a pan?
We haven't started yet. We just got parked up.